Hiya, Dan here. I'm an ecologist and a birdwatcher who lives up in the northwest of Ireland in Donegal, and I was thinking I would do a few short videos about bird life and nature in the area. And the bird I want to focus on first is one of my favourites, the corncrake, which is a scarce bird now, but was very common in Ireland and has declined massively by about 85% since the 1970s. It's down to about 150 pairs in Ireland now in total. And I've never seen one, but I've always wanted to see one. And they are still found in this little fringe of northwest Donegal. So I thought I would bring you with me on my journey to try and find a corncrake and to try and see it. So this first video is basically just a conversation about the corncrake, a little bit of background information about it. And then next video we'll get out and try and find one, and we'll go from there. I don't know where this is going to go, but we'll see. So thanks for joining and enjoy. Yeah, I mean, I'd always heard that it was really hard to find. Like they always say it's like a very shy bird that which is really, it's a really strange, ironic character to the bird, and that and it's true with a lot of the things about it, is that it has these very strange juxtapositions of like characters for a bird, or for anything, but for a bird in particular. Like it's got an incredibly loud voice, like you can hear it from really far away, but you won't see it. You can spend your whole life in the countryside and you won't see it, because they like skulking around in wet meadows early in the season, and then they kind of move to like drier meadows later on in the season, but you won't see them in either, so it doesn't matter. And then like there's other traits of it as well that just are like very strange and kind of don't really fit with it. Like it flies with its legs hanging down really awkwardly, like it doesn't look like it can fly a long distance. It looks really weak, but I mean, they do an incredible migration. Like they fly across the Sahara Desert every year, down to southern Africa, down to the Congo, and then they fly up along the western route, western migration. The ones that come here, I think, it's thought that they come along this western migration route, up through North Africa. And I mean, if you ever see them fly, they just look like, I mean, I haven't seen them fly, but apparently if you see them fly, they just, have their legs hanging down, and they don't look like a swallow, or like a tern, like a bird that is like this elegant, aerodynamic kind of bird that can just cover the whole world in one migration. Like they're dumpy, really, and they're quite like, they're not elegant flyers, but they do this incredible migration no matter what. And they've turned up in like Australia, they've turned up in like Greenland, they've turned up all over the place. Like they're not even, they like overshoot where they're going. Like they end up in the totally wrong part of the world sometimes. And there's lots of stuff we don't understand about them. But yeah, I mean, like that's kind of what drew me into them, is because there's a lot of weird traits about them that are kind of mysterious, and the story of how they've declined in Ireland is like it kind of mirrors the story of so much of wildlife in Ireland. It mirrors the story of curlews, and it mirrors the story of lapwing and all of our wading birds and all of our birds a lot of our birds generally. And but the corncrake is almost like emblematic of like this mystery, that like this mysterious bird that's kind of strange, that you might not see, but that used to be really common and used to be really well known. And it's sort of like the losing of that sort of natural history, like the real historical element of it, of this connection to the Congo that's making this mad noise in the neighbor's yard. That like the loss of that is like a really good symbol to me of like what loss of biodiversity actually, what you actually lose, the inherent value of having a bird that was there no longer be there. and you lose this sort of stitching together of the world with nature. So, I mean, that's kind of why I like the Corncrake. That's why I like the Corncrake. It was, really a prominent bird of the area. Like everyone knew that the Corncrake was here, and they knew its call because it has a really distinctive call. And like, in any sort of small shop or grocery store around here, there used to be like a little wanted poster with an image of a Corncrake just like its head back, craking away, and saying like, "Have you seen this bird?" And then it would have a number at the bottom. So it was like an element of mystery back then is what I remembered kind of like intriguing about it. And I was really into birds as well. I was the other piece. I was really into birds as a kid. So I was like 12, 13 years old, had a bird book. This was like the rarest bird in the area, or the most unusual. So I really wanted to see it. And I didn't ever see it. I just basically wandered around the whole neighborhood like listening for it. And again, you can hear it from very far away. So I heard it quite a bit, but I never actually saw it. And people got to know that I was looking for this bird as well. They'd be like, "The Conahan boy is looking for a Corncrake." So then there was someone who my family knew who like contacted my uncle and was like, "There's a Corncrake in my backyard. The Conahan boy's over from America. Let him go. He might see it. Like I know he's looking for them or whatever." And so I went down and I was like really young, and I just sat in her backyard. She was like a really old woman, and I just like said thank you and sat in her backyard for like 8 hours, like just hearing it calling, but not really seeing it. Not getting close enough. Every time I'd move, it would stop. And there were lots of times where I felt it was really close, but it was just a big open field, and it wouldn't, it just would go away. I mean, they definitely wouldn't be the most popular, like, they'd be, they're very like repetitive, kind of nasal tone to their voice. It's not a pleasant sound. Like it actually sounds like a really horrible laugh. And I'm not talking about me here, but like the generic coworkers laugh that you like hear that's really like nasal and like it doesn't sound like they're finding anything actually humorous, but they're laughing at it anyway. It sounds a bit like that, or they just need to be the center of attention, but then pretend that they're not. Like they need to yell the loudest in the field, but then when you go looking for them, they're nowhere to be seen. Well, I mean that's changed a lot over the history, and it's changed a lot over the human history of Ireland. Like at the very beginning, corncrakes were eaten a lot back in the day. Like I mean, they're big dumpy. Well, they're not big, but they're dumpy birds that they don't fly very quickly either. Like they prefer to run. They prefer to like run around the field, which means that you can kind of corral them down a field into a net. So you can string a big net across the field and you can walk down it. So there's a lot of thinking that they were really important for like early human diets, and they found like bones in like Bronze Age settlements, and there's talk about eating them in the 1800s and stuff. Like I mean, before the decline happened, it was said that they were pretty tasty. They would sell for the same amount as like a mallard duck, which was generally seen as kind of like a wealthy person's sort of meat. They called them rails, which is the family of birds that they belong to. But yeah, people used to eat corncrakes. But yeah, I mean, their distribution in Ireland kind of changed as humans basically converted a lot of the Irish woodland and native broadleaf woodland into pasture and farmland. and they moved from initially what would have been what's called machair sites, which are these species-rich, in terms of plants, areas along the coast, which still exist here, and in Scotland and a few other places. They moved inland from there, following sort of agricultural sort of change to the land, which is quite ironic because the agricultural changes in agricultural development are what led to the decline of the corncrake. So in the last, it's been declining since the 1900s or since the 1800s, for a long period of time. And by the 70s, it was very clear that it was a common bird at one point, but it was declining even then, pretty rapidly. But then it was the change to mechanized hay harvesting, which happened in the 80s and 90s, which really sort of sunk the corncrake populations in Ireland, and brought them to the cusp of extinction. They're small birds, smaller than you would expect. They're like, I don't know what the expectation is of corncrakes, but they're small birds about the size of a blackbird, that are colored the color of grass. Basically, they're sort of colored, but it's more subtle than that. They've got sort of tan coloration and even like light purple and gray around their face, mottled kind of colors. They sound a lot like, there's been, they've said, there was a really strange description of them that said like two serrated bones, like being rubbed against each other, like two jagged bones. I've never done that, so I don't know what that sounds like. But I can believe that it sounds like the corncrake, or like taking a comb and like running your finger along the top, so it makes that noise. I'm going to do an impression of it. It goes like. So that's what a corncrake sounds like.